Sorry, I'm the asshole that's holding everything up now.
Well, we're already running, because I'm not going to miss a minute.
Okay, all right. Ease up, cutie.
I'll edit, but I'm not missing a minute.
All right. Sorry. I'm sorry.
That's no problem. Scotty wants, he wants me to get down pretty quickly so we can sell merchandise while we still have some time.
Right. I'm sorry. Here we go.
That's it.
Now I'm rushed. Okay.
We
Ready?
will get it out, Mike.
Okay, here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
Z88.9 FM, and joining me, I have the wonderful pleasure, an honor, man sitting to the right of me, a man by the name of Mr. Mike Keneally. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing, man?
Awesome, man. Awesome set. Little different crowd, but like you said earlier before the interview, a bunch of music-loving people.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. That's
No.
for sure. It's just packed with people that will actually sit there and listen to what you do, no matter where you go.
Yeah.
They'll follow you. So that's rare. It doesn't happen every day. That's for sure.
Yeah. Now you have a good friend of ours that we've had in other incarnations of other projects, Nick Virgilio on drums.
Sure.
Now, how did you guys meet? It was about over 5 years ago, or longer than that. You guys met, correct?
Yeah, we met through Kevin. It was when Kevin asked Brian Beller and I to play with him on this Yes tribute. We did Siberian Katru with the Bruford tune stuck in the middle of it, and Nick played drums on that. So I connected with Nick through Kevin. We knew each other for years, but we never really hooked up. We never really played. And then about 3 years ago, 2001, when I needed a new drummer, the timing was right, and it couldn't be a more perfect fit as far as I'm concerned. I love the way Nick plays this stuff, and it's really it brought to me it made the band feel finally like a real band when he came in, and we pared it down to the 4-piece that we are now, and it's just I'm really excited about the way the music sounds.
Mm-hmm. You have more dates coming up in the next few months. You looking to arrange some more stuff?
Well, we have the only things that are booked right now are some Taylor acoustic guitar clinics that I'll be doing with Brian Beller in the East Coast and the Midwest in September and October, and we'll be posting those dates soon on Keneally.com. But the hope and the plan is that later in November we will get the whole band on the road, and definitely my first plan is to hit the East Coast, because it's been 3 years since we played as a full band, except for yesterday, which went so well that it just we were all sitting around the hotel last night bumming heavily that we didn't have another gig tonight because we had such a good time.
Yeah.
So we all wish that we were touring right now.
Your musical life began. You were young. You heard the Beatles. Your sister had Beatles records, and you went berserk. You listened to every record and you learned them on the piano.
Well, I just that music was like, it sounded so good to me. It was like perfect. So I listened to her records all the time. I was into it before I was even playing any instruments. But then on my 7th birthday, I got an electric organ for my birthday, and I started like picking out Beatle melodies and stuff. Actually, the first song I ever played for some reason was Painted Black. I don't know why. But the Beatles just had the magical quality to them that I really responded to. So for a few years there, the Beatles were just about it for me.
Now, is it true you're in New Jersey? You
Well,
started in New Jersey. Your
Well,
life
actually,
began.
Long Island.
Actually, Long Island. Well, yeah, you're a northeasterner.
Yeah.
Then you went to San Diego. Why such a huge transition? I mean, direct opposite.
Well, I was on. I didn't have much say because I was only 8 years old when my family relocated, and it was just it's primarily it was a medical thing. It was on my mom had a medical condition, and her doctor recommended the climate in San Diego.
Because it's so great.
And and that was so this was 1970, and she's still hanging in there. So the doctor must have been right. But, so yeah, the whole family pulled up stakes when I was just a kid.
Yeah.
And I've been in Southern California for 34 years now.
And then you heard Zappa.
Heard Zappa when I was 9, and that was really the thing. The next thing after the Beatles that just that pretty much picked up my head and twisted it around and made me see that there were possibilities.
Now the way I see it, Mike, is like you heard Zappa, then you really kind of threw yourself into music, and I mean did session work. You played with a bunch of people over like a span of a long time. and then then how did you finally hook up with your idol, your mentor? How did you?
Well, I called him. I called up his office. It was late 1987, and I used to call what was and I guess they still have the 818 Pumpkin information line, and I used to call every once in a while to see what was new and if there were any albums coming out or whatever. And then one day I called and they said, for those of you who have heard the rumor that Frank is in rehearsal with the new band, it's true. And it wasn't like they said, and if you would like to apply for a job, please call this number. It was just, I heard that message and got this very strong feeling that it was time for me to try to get in his band right then. And I had a sense, and I didn't know, unfortunately, how right I was, that if I didn't take this shot now, I would never get a chance. So I just called up his office and said that I was. I played the guitar and keyboards and I sang, and I was really familiar with all of his material because I had it all. I'd listened to it for years and years and just loved it. And he called me back a couple of days later and said, so I understand you know all my material. And I said, well, I'm certainly familiar with all of it and could play it for you given a little bit of time to prepare. And he said, oh, you know how many songs that is? And I said, yeah, they're all in the other room. And he said, no, I don't believe you. Get your ass up here and prove it. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then, ding.
So he told me a couple songs that he wanted me to work on, and I figured them out as best I could. And then my brother drove me up to L.A. for the audition because I was still living in San Diego at the time. I just sat in the back of the car for that 2-hour ride trying to think of every single Frank Zappa song I could and practice it on the guitar. And I was starting to stress out a little bit. And my brother. I was in the back seat. My brother was driving, and he said, if you're not ready right this moment for this job, you're not going to be ready, 45 minutes from now. And I thought, well, that's wise. I calmed down a lot, and it ended up being a really fun audition, just really pleasurable. And he got a kick. Frank got a kick out of the fact that he could just name a song, and I would say, "Give me a second," and I would I'd figure it out and play it for him. I think
the autistic Zappa child.
Yeah, it was like a new toy for him.
Yeah.
So it ended up being a helpful resource, I think, for me to be in the band because, I'm just such a big fan. I love this stuff so much, and I could play it for him. So if he could name a song that maybe hadn't been played in 20-25 years, like Who Needs the Peace Corps or something, he would just get the urge. Oh, it would be fun to play Who Needs the Peace Corps, and then he would just look at me. And then I would say, okay, well, give me a sec, and I'd figure it out. And then within an hour we'd have a 12-piece arrangement that we could build up together because it was just a slick band. It didn't take long to get stuff happening there. Frank would just start dictating notes to the horn section, and they'd be scribbling it down. It was fun watching music come to life in that band.
That must have been an experience. I guess when you finally realized what you got yourself into, were you like, oh my god?
I was kind of freaked out because when I didn't have. I had a little bit of training on keyboard, but I didn't have any guitar training. So suddenly I was kind of plunged into a serious guitar gig. And at that point, keyboards were definitely my first instrument. I hadn't spent nearly as much time playing guitar as I did keyboards. And suddenly I'm going to be playing, Frank Zappa's impossible guitar parts, the stuff that Steve Vai used to play masterfully, and here I am, an organist. Right. I'm going to play this stuff. Yeah. And I also realized that a lot of music that I thought I knew, I didn't, because I had learned it off of records, or thought I learned it off of records. But then when you get in the band with the guys who really know how to play it, and there are certain things where you think you know what's going on, but you really don't, unless you play it in unison with somebody who really knows what they're doing, or really investigate the charts. And some of Frank's rhythms are so strange that you might think you know what's going on, but until you get into the mathematics of it and see that it really is 5 notes over this quarter beat, and then a triplet, and then 7 notes in the space of 4 or whatever. Wow. You're not going to be able to play in unison with a whole band executing this stuff unless you know what's up. And so at the first full band rehearsal, there was this thing in Filthy Habits. That's a bunch of quintuplets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Not the beat you think you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought that I knew this line, but I had never realized that that's the way that it lined up. So I'm trying to play it, and not doing it very well. And Frank makes me do it 2, 3, 4 times, and then he waves me to a halt, and then he looks at me and goes, "Why is this so hard for you?" And I realized at that point, it's like, grow up in a hurry. It was trial by fire, and I better figure out what to do real quick. So it was just a question of amping up my learning curve at a huge rate and just figure it out, because if I don't, I'm not gonna have this gig. So I had to
crash course.
Yeah, I just had to do it. I had no choice but to.
What led to of course there's history there, but then what led to the ending of the project?
There were some. 88 was when that band went on the road, and it was pretty much just some really unfortunate and, in retrospect, avoidable personality issues, somewhat musical issues. But there were some guys in the band who weren't digging this other specific member of the band, who was a guy who was a friend of mine, and it was really kind of heartbreaking for me to see all this happen, because I'm thinking, we're in Frank Zappa's band. This is a blessed thing. Not everybody gets to say they're in Frank Zappa's band. We should just be, why can't we all get along?
Mm-hmm.
And but there were some guys that it couldn't hang with this guy. So it ended up kind of, they tried to get Frank to fire him, and Frank didn't want to fire him because he liked him, and instead he just broke up the band. Oh, sorry, my crickets are going off.
Yay tour.
All right, turned off the crickets.
Biggest band you've ever heard in your life.
Yeah, the band just ended prematurely, and
It was still a great band.
But it was a great
tour.
band, but the thing is that Frank at that point hadn't been diagnosed with cancer, but it subsequently discovered that, because it was diagnosed in 1990, I think, but it was determined that he probably had it for about 8 years at the time that it was diagnosed. So in 88, he wasn't feeling that well. He didn't know the extent of his illness, but he knew that he didn't feel well, and so I would imagine that the fact that just his physical resistance was lowered made him less enthusiastic about fighting to keep the band together.
Yeah.
But it was really a shame, because he really liked that band. I think he was very happy with the way that band sounded, and for it to end that way was a drag.
When it all was said and done, I mean, were you still keeping in contact close with Frank up until the end?
Pretty much, because I maintained a working relationship with the Zappa family. I ended up going into Dweezil and Ahmed's band and playing with them for about 6 years, and I did some transcribing for Frank and just various things. And I would still go over to Frank's place, and he would play me albums that he was working on and stuff. And some of the most special times that I remember with Frank, it didn't happen on stage or in rehearsal. It was just sitting in the basement listening to music, just the two of us, and him watching me listen, because that's what he would do, is he'd invite people over to listen to his music while it was in progress, and gauge their reactions. And it was part of the laboratory process when he was putting new work together.
Yeah. Do you think he was fatherly in a way to you, or how do you look at him as a best friend?
Well, I more than anything, I look at him as a teacher.
Yeah.
And he taught me a lot, not just about music, but about how to get through life, and how to ask questions constantly.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably one of his most major contributions, is that I think he made a lot of people realize that you don't have to believe what's being told you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And in fact, it's a good idea not to most of the time.
Yeah. And to have and hook up with someone like Frank Zappa, that's I could just imagine the look on your face going to that first rehearsal. Like, what am I getting myself into?
Yeah, it was. I mean, the audition was a pleasure. It was because it was just Frank and I, and it was fun. But then when I started playing with the full band, it was a little nerve-wracking. Not least because I didn't know how secure my job was, because the reason I was there in the first place is because Ray White, who had been playing guitar and singing, was suddenly not there. He was in the band going to rehearsals, and then he disappeared, and nobody knew where he went. And so Frank hired me and he told me when he shook my hand, he said, "But if Ray White comes back, you're out of here." so for 3 or 4 days, I was working with that kind of hanging over my head. And
nothing to lose.
And then one day he came in and said, "Well, I was talking to Gail, and she suggested that if Ray would just go off without any warning like that maybe it might not be the best idea for him to be in the band when he comes back." So the gig was mine.
Very sensible thinking. The early '90s come, and you throw yourself into Mike Keneally.
Mm-hmm.
And how did what sparked it? What made you want to start? I'm going to start doing my own thing, releasing my own albums.
Well, I was working with Dweezil, and we were working fairly frequently, but not all the time. And so there was enough spare time when I wasn't working with him that I could start getting my own projects together. And I realized, I kind of was not certain exactly which way I should head after I got out of Frank's band, because all I wanted when I was growing up was to play with Frank Zappa. And then my very first professional musical experience really is playing with Frank Zappa, because you were mentioning like sessions and stuff, but I wasn't doing that many sessions. What I was really doing was just playing top 40 with my band.
Or playing like cover bands.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, so no real pro music experience until suddenly I'm in Frank Zappa's band, so that was pretty freaky. And it was especially weird to get out of that and say, wow, I've just, at age 25, 26, accomplished what was my goal in music, which was to play with Frank Zappa. Where to now?
Yeah, I could be, I might as well become a priest now.
Yeah. So, I did like a couple of Zappa sort of tribute things, like this thing called Zappa's Universe that happened in New York, and it was kind of, that was an emotional experience, and I was playing Frank's music, and I was really enjoying it, and I was thinking, well, maybe I'm supposed to like continue playing Frank's music, and that's how I repay my debt to him, or that's how I continue his legacy or whatever. And then what I realized after a certain point is that the best use of what I learned from Frank is to do my own music and give it all I got, and really apply his work ethic and his just his inspiration and his example to trying to do as much as I can musically with my own ideas and my own visions. So I just some friends of mine were starting a record label called Immune, and they asked me if I felt like making an album for them, and that ended up being Hat. And Hat was a very ambitious first album, and it was all over the place, all kinds of weird ideas on there, and it kind of, I think, set the pace for the rest of my stuff, where every time I make an album, I try to make it be something that's very unique, that it doesn't necessarily follow on what you would expect from the last album. Almost every album is kind of a left turn from the album before, and I just wanted to build a body of work that could hopefully keep people entertained for a really long time.
When you threw yourself into this, then you kind of also on top of that Frank, your father passed away.
Yeah.
And did that kind of, most people would be hampered by that and would have to walk away.
Well, that was a freaky period, because that was right in December of '93. Frank passed away from prostate cancer. The following July 3rd, my father passed away from prostate cancer. So these were the two major male sort of inspirations, just sort of guides in my life, and I felt kind of adrift when suddenly they were both taken away. And in fact, the album that came out of that whole time, which is called Boil That Dust Bag, has a big pair of rusty scissors on the front cover, and that represents like cutting apron strings, cutting the ties to the former way of life, and this sort of feeling of security that I had with these two men in my life, and suddenly they were gone. And in the middle of both of those passings, my daughter was born. So now it was my turn to be the guy. It's my turn to be the authority figure. So and that was a little bit. I got a little panicky over that. So it was.
You give me a lump in my throat right now. It's the most emotional interview I've done.
So that's why Dustback, Boil That Dustback is emotionally a pretty heavy ride, because that's what was going on there.
Yeah. Tell us about Exo Wax. How did that whole thing come together?
It just at a certain point it really I made several albums for Immune Records, and I was really thrilled with the albums, The Hat and Dustback and Sluggo, and enjoyed a good working relationship, but they just reached a point where it really felt like it would be nice to have my own label and just be able to say, this is mine, these are my masters, this is my property. And my friend Scott Chatfield, who I've known for almost 20 years now, was shared the idea that it would be a good idea for me to start a label. So he and I started it in 1999, and since then we started with Nonkertopf, and then we put out Dancing in 2000, Wooden Smoke in 2001, and then a long delay for a million reasons, mainly to do with the busyness of the guys in my band getting us all together at the same place at the same time. But it took a long time to make the new album, Dog, but finally we got the new record out just a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Taylor Guitars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So were you excited about that? It was a couple of years ago, but you got the endorsement. And all
that. I've been playing their instruments for a while, but to finally be added to their clinician roster, they have these Taylor guitar clinicians who travel around playing their instruments and talking about them. And usually you go to a music store and you just play music and take questions and talk about the instruments and just the way it usually goes is that me and my bass player Brian Beller. Brian and I will go to a store and with our acoustic instruments and mainly just play, and if people have questions, we'll answer them, and then we'll just talk about how much we dig the instruments and what a truly really high class company Taylor is. They really are a fantastic company. The people there are good. It's a great company to be involved with. I'm really happy.
Yeah. If you looked at your albums like kids, what's Dog?
Oh wow! Well, Dog's the young one. Dog is definitely the new one, and he's. I think he's a boy.
Yeah. Would you say this one is? Did you put maybe a different twist on this new recording? Maybe a new way of going into the studio and doing this album? Was there any new?
No, this is the first album that captures who's been my working band for the last 3 years. So we finally got to take my band into the studio, and I just knew that the band made a really good sound together. It's like it really when the four of us play together, I just like the way it sounds. So my main thing was just to try to capture that accurately. But once I started putting the material together, and we recorded a lot of material, quite a few more songs than are actually on the album, but gradually the songs that felt like they belonged together started gravitating toward one another, and then when I finally came up with the final sequence, I realized that it was a really thick album and really pretty heavy, and the kind of the heaviest album I've done since Boil That Dust Back, and that's 10 years. So I was excited by the fact that the album seemed to have a lot of physical impact, and that there was a lot of, it's a Mike Keneally album, so there's going to be some weird things on there, but in general, the writing and the melodies and stuff are pretty direct in a way, although there's still some freaky things on there, like This Tastes Like a Hotel, which is the 15-minute, inexplicable epic.
Right.
But I just the response I'm getting seems to be that people are really into this record in a different kind of way and than any of the other stuff. Even though everybody's been digging all the albums, even people who have really dug everything up to this point are saying, I just was not expecting this album to be like this. It's just kind of a really consistent, heavy rock album, but at the same time, it's got all this craziness in it.
It's still got the Keneally.
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. And basically, when I was a teenager, and I was imagining what kind of crazy ass rock albums I'd be making when I grew up, Dog comes the closest to like matching that fantasy of.
So this is your favorite kid.
I had a real fondness for Dog. Yeah.
I kind of like this kid.
But all the other ones are fine children as well.
Yeah. Some have gone to college.
Absolutely.
Some
absolutely.
I've put through the wall. What's on the horizon? What's next for Mike Keneally?
Well, we've got the orchestra album that I recorded in Holland last year, The Universe Will Provide. That's coming out on September 7th on Steve Vai's label, Favored Nations, and we're very excited about that. And basically, it's an unusual opportunity because we have Dog to promote, this this pretty hardcore rock album with all this peculiar stuff, and then we also have this orchestra album out with it's my first major long form composition, and so the very wide extremes between these two albums, but I just will do whatever I need to do to let people know that these things exist, and I just want anybody who might conceivably enjoy these albums to have a chance to get them, and I also want to get out and play because my band right now is like on fire. So
you gonna come to Philly?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Hell yeah. I know you're pressed for time. One of my favorite questions I love asking the artists over the years is, if I was to go into your house right now, go into your CD player, what CD am I going to play?
Oh wow. Well, let's see. Right now, you might find some Sonny Rollins, or maybe a Radiohead album, or Neil Young. I can't remember what the last thing I played when I was. I was listening to some Bob Dylan.
No prog rock. No.
Those are all prog artists.
He's a smart one.
Joe Giant Ecstasy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, actually, I was hanging out with.
Those are his faves.
But Ecstasy. I love Ecstasy.
I know you did.
Mike, Dude, Raul, you're awesome. I
Oh,
appreciate
thank you, man.
I appreciate you taking the time out. And once again, friends, for those of you listening online, you can visit Mike's website. It's at www.keneally.com and spell it out. It's Keneall.
Why? You got it.
Not a bad beer.
Not bad at all.
In the meantime, God bless. Take care, and we hope to start getting some of that dog on the air. Start making it crazy.
Oh, that's terrific. Thank you.
All right, bud.
All right, take care.
What
Want
I'm thinking
me
of
to
doing
ID
now,
for you?
yeah, just a quick ID. I'm sorry.
This has been a Lost Satellite production.